Hi everybody, I'm Kate
And I'm Tina.
and welcome to A Lift to Work.
Today, Kate, is a really good subject that we've been asked to talk about by some of our listeners. So today, what we're talking about?
So today we are talking about emotional fatigue, emotional exhaustion. Being in a healthcare setting as a health professional, it's very quick and it's easy to
Mm,
fall down into this because we give everything, don't we? We give
yeah.
our emotional all. So today we're going to talk about what it is and different tips and tricks on how to treat it, and but not just treat it, avoid it.
Mm.
Just as important to avoid it if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, because if you look up emotional exhaustion or emotional fatigue, and there used to be an old-fashioned phrase called burnout that you don't hear nowadays, which is good, I think, really. Nurses, doctors, police officers, teachers, all of those kind of professions come up quite high on the likely groups of people who will experience this. And I think it's a tricky one because on a level you need compassion. And so sometimes it's called compassion fatigue, because if you can't connect with how patients and families might be feeling in healthcare, for example, then, or your clients in other settings, then that disconnect's not very helpful. So you need to be able to connect whilst at the same time keeping emotional distance and your own well-being. So it's a tricky one.
Mm,
Because you can sometimes see people who have emotionally disconnected and they look like they don't care. And actually
yeah,
what they might be trying to do is protect themselves. So it is a tricky one.
it is. So, other signs. So, what are the signs and symptoms have we got now? You probably sitting there in wherever you're listening to this, thinking, "Oh yeah." And then when we go through some of these other symptoms, you may recognize it in yourself, and you may recognize it in other people.
Mm,
And that's good because when you can recognize it, you can do something about
yeah.
it. Because it might be that the other person doesn't see it.
Exactly. And that's such an excellent point because, it's about trying to be empathetic whilst you're doing this noticing. And organizations aren't always empathetic. So, somebody could be not meeting deadlines or look like they're not committed to their job, or they're absent more often, or maybe a department just has a big turnover and people don't stay there very long. The clues can be there, but often we start saying, well, it's just not good enough. And we start managing that without really exploring what is going on there. And is there some sort of emotional exhaustion happening with this colleague? So, what sort of things might people be experiencing?
So you may have trouble sleeping,
Mm,
worry about stuff. It can be
mm,
anything. Um, Lack of motivation, as in,
yeah,
I just, uh, I got nothing. I just
yeah,
can't be
no,
up.
yeah,
I got nothing.
apathetic, yeah. And you might get headaches, and you might basically just feel like your memory's not very good. You can't remember things. And that can all come
Uh,
out of emotional exhaustion. And you might feel angry, be a bit irrational.
yeah, you might feel a little bit physically knackered. You're
Yeah,
gone. You just there.
yeah. You just, sometimes people say, I just can't seem to rest. I feel tired all the time is a phrase you might hear. Feel tired all the
Mm,
time. And it doesn't matter how much sleep I get, it doesn't matter. After my days off, I come back, I'm just as tired as when I left.
yes, yeah. You may be quite cynical
Mm,
about stuff, a bit pessimistic.
mm,
Uh, you might you might get angry
mm.
about nothing,
Yeah.
completely rationally. Um, And as we're going through this list, which is not an exhaustive list, I am aware that many of the things that Tina and I are saying could be menopausal symptoms as well.
Yeah.
So it's really important, and I can't stress this enough, to be able to differentiate, because your treatments will be different and they will both need treating, but how you do it will be different.
Yeah. And of course, this could be the beginning of another problem with your mental health, like, a longer term depression or something. So just being in that curious space of thinking, right, noticing how I'm feeling, what's happening to me or my colleague, I think is a really good starting place for us in the jobs that we do.
Yeah.
What can we do about it, Kate, then? So if we feel it's due to emotional exhaustion, what sort of things are going to help?
Well, like I would always, and I do always say to my clients, um, work out the causes of
Mm,
each of these things. Because if we don't know the cause, you it's all very well treating it, but if you don't know the cause, you'll just fall back into that same pattern of behavior and same pattern of symptoms. So one of the things that I would say is find out your cause, especially if it's a stress, if it's a stress related thing.
mm.
So
Yeah. And I think it's helpful to consider, is it transient? So is it because it's start of the financial year, and in April and May, finance departments feel this incredible pressure to get all their books done? Is that the current stressor? Is that while you're emotionally exhausted, but it's transient because the
yes,
rest of the year is not going to be so bad, for example, for those who work in finance and accounting? Or is it showing up more often? And like Kate says, has there been a significant change? Has the manager changed in a department? Is the way things are done different? Have you changed anything? If you move to a different job, a different organization, what feels different? What's going
yeah.
on to trigger?
It could even be, are you moving house?
Mm,
You
yeah,
know, have you got everything associated with that? Are you having a baby? Have you just had a baby? Because like that's an exhaustion like you'll never experience at any other time.
yeah, yeah. So, in the whole of your life, are you ascribing it to work when it's probably potentially something different? Are you getting married? Are you stressing about something that's coming up in your life and you've just got less emotional reserve?
Yeah.
Um, that kind of idea.
So when you know what it is, um, and even before then, talk to other people about it. You may be sat there thinking, I am the only person in the whole wide world who has this problem. To which I would say, well, how big is your ego
Mm.
to that? Because I can bet your bottom dollar there will be many, many, probably hundreds of thousands of people who are feeling almost exactly the same way.
Yeah. And what are you doing to help yourself? I mean, it's quite easy to feel like a victim and to go into that place of what's called learned helplessness when you feel like this, because you just haven't got a lot of reserve to think differently. So listen to our flexible thinking episode, but also have a think about things like, am I above the line? So,
Mm.
have I got the right mental attitude here, or am I being a bit like, oh, everything happens to me and I've got no power to change my life? Where is your thinking around that? And also, where is your thinking around switching off from work? So Kate and I did another episode, which was about, those transitions from work to home. Are you employing the right sort of strategies to get yourself in a better head state when you've had a difficult day at work or work's been intense?
Yeah.
Because if you're not creating distance and moving away from it emotionally, you're holding on to it for too long.
Yes. Also consider what you're eating.
Yeah,
Is it processed food? Are you eating natural products? Do any of those have an impact? It might be that you're feeling rubbish, but you're eating a load of bread.
yeah,
I'm not saying that's a factor for everybody, but if I eat a lot of bread I feel sluggish and
Yeah.
bloated and bleh.
Yeah. So, look to how you're nurturing your whole self. What are you eating? Are you getting some form of exercise or being out in nature, even if you're just going for a little walk?
Mm.
Are you relying on things to get you out of feeling emotionally exhausted that aren't as helpful, like alcohol? Not saying you can't have the odd drink, but is that too much of a crutch?
Mm.
What are you doing to get yourself to feel better? And getting enough sleep is a huge one. And a lot of people, the first thing they will say when they're emotionally exhausted is, my sleep's terrible. I wake up at 3 a.m. or whatever. But also getting off to sleep. So, what's your relationship with your phone, with your social media, with your screen time? We talk about this for youngsters, but as adults, are we self-monitoring? Am I picking up my phone a lot? Am
Yeah.
I scrolling for information or for pleasure?
Yeah. And with that, keep an ear out for another one of our episodes, which will be coming out later than this one, which is all about sleep
Mm,
and
yeah.
how to manage that.
Yeah. What can you do to help yourself be in a good situation for sleep?
Yeah.
But also, taking a break might be a good idea. So if you've got a holiday, if you're one of these people that's all of a sudden stressed, but actually has got more holiday than the rest of the team,
Yeah.
maybe you need to take some of your holiday.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
there are other telltale signs as well, that if you haven't recognized them in yourself, that from a physical point of view, what's your blood pressure like? Are you getting headaches? Are you putting weight on? Are you anxious? Do
mm,
you need to go to the doctors
yeah.
to have a conversation?
And what's your self-talk like? So are you doing underwear over your trousers? Are you being the superhero in the team? Do you think this is some kind of martyrdom that, it has to be me and I have to do it, otherwise it's all going to fall apart? Um, just ask yourself what that self-talk is like.
Yeah, and it's interesting you should say that, because as well as I do, and I'm sure guys, you guys listening will be nodding when I say, you are, whether you like it or not, you are replaceable. In a work situation, you are absolutely replaceable. So don't kill yourself unnecessarily.
Yeah. And I mean, that old saying of, as we're all on our deathbeds saying our final words, no one's saying, I wish I'd done more work. Or I can't go yet. There's something in me in tray. It's just, they're not the important things. And I suppose just taking a step back, as if you've got a drone and you're looking at your life and thinking, right, have I got this thing called life work balance right? Is there enough joy? Am I feeding my soul? Am I nurturing myself? Because often emotional exhaustion comes because your cup is completely empty.
Mm, yeah, or it's so overflowed that there's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. So your cup is empty of any resilience, but your cup is full of stuff that feels overwhelmed.
Yeah, yeah. So what can you change? What can you do? Um, and as well, what can you say to other people, either about how the state that you are currently in, if it's you that is feeling this emotional exhaustion, or to somebody else, especially if you're a manager and you're recognizing it in somebody else, to say what you need to say.
Yeah.
So think about that one.
I think
So,
there's an awful lot of information been in this episode, Kate, and I think what I would encourage folks to do if they are feeling emotional overwhelm is listen again when you're in a place where you can sit down with a bit of paper and write down some of the stuff Kate and I have talked about, and just in column 1, write the stuff down, and in column 2, just do a bit of a review around some of these things. Just take a step back for a minute and think, of all the things that they've talked about, which of these
mm,
might be pertinent to me?
and on those amazing words of wisdom, along with listen to our other podcasts because you'll still learn a lot, even if you listen to them again. It's time for us to depart. So thank you for listening. I'm Kate.
I'm Tina.
Oh, you can finish this one, Tina.
Are you sure? And
Yeah,
this has
absolutely.
been a lift to work.